Evan writes, I'm in the process of forming a nonprofit in a state that requires only one board member for incorporation. I'm hesitant to give up control by adding other board members. Am I required to have more than one board member to get 501c3 status? This is always an interesting question because, as Evan notes, there are states that some require 3 board members, kind of is the standard minimum. But there's a bunch of states that don't say that specifically, and you can form a nonprofit with only one board member. Now, you will see online strong indications that the IRS really wants 501c3 organizations to have at least 3 board members, but that's not, to my knowledge, and I've looked a bunch of times, I've not found anything in Treasury regulations or formal guidance that says you must have 3 board members to be a 501c3. But there's a lot of stuff out there indicating that the IRS really views that as something they want to see. So at least 3 is really considered a best practice as a minimum, but not formally binding law in terms of the 501c3 rules. But, and this is where I want your thoughts, Mike, longer term, it tends to not be a great look to operate for extended period of time with one board member. And that is where at some point you're going to need to get comfortable with this notion of having other people there as part of the organization.
I think that's the key is think of this also as a risk management. It could be that a brand new organization can start up and we just have one founding father type of person who really puts a lot of time into it. Mm-hmm. But it's not sustainable in the future.
Yeah.
And it's also open to inurement, oversight problems.
Right.
And I guess public perception. Mm-hmm. But I did, when I saw that word, like, I'm not comfortable in the question, that's the whole purpose of having, going to 3. Obviously, we don't usually pick 2 because you can't solve a dispute.
Right.
Or you have to wait the votes. But I think 3 is there for a lot of obvious reasons and then some.
Yeah. Well, it's not an uncommon feeling because people start businesses all the time where it's a one-person business. They make all the decisions. So sharing that decision-making, especially where one person has come up with the idea, put a lot of the sweat equity, so to speak, into it. So I definitely hear that often, and I get where it's coming from. But the whole concept of a nonprofit is board of director driven, and it's not all about one person. It is kind of about transparency and accountability. And part of that is just comes with the territory. You're going down the nonprofit route. You've got to get comfortable with a board of directors at some point. But I get where the sentiment comes in.
Yeah, I think the way I like to give the states the benefit of the doubt they don't address this is they understand that starting something up couldn't start with a single person, mm-hmm. and then the idea blossoms. And I think they're trying to take away a barrier to just get started.
Right.
And not say that's the way they expect you to operate forever, because sometimes you got to get the proverbial paperwork going. You tell yourself you're adding people as you go, so they can just sort of get started.
Right, but
I reverse when I've had a person or two say, "Well, the state says I don't have to," and I said, "Well, this is the way I look at it. They're just trying to help you to, to keep moving, and you can add people as you go."
Yeah, and make no mistake, if the state government, the state attorney general, gets a whiff of something seems wrong, and it's a one-person nonprofit, they are going to be inclined to investigate that further. And you will be under the microscope, and especially when there's one board member. Having 3 can just the perception of that looks a lot more above board, so to speak, no pun intended, and that can assuage some concerns. But you're definitely more under the microscope.
But Ben, in the three key fiduciary responsibilities related to boards.
Mm-hmm. Duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience.
opinions.
Yeah.
I believe a single person board, you could make a reasonable argument that a single person board, you would violate all three of those.
That's yeah.
Because there's no way to oversight, there's no
Right.
checks and balances.
Right.
And even board members are supposed to rely on other opinions, and you can't, so you're by default relying on your own opinion.
Yeah. And Mike, one more thing about this question. There is a structure that may assuage some of Evan's concerns, which is called the single member nonprofit corporation structure. What that means is you have a board, but for at least a period of time, at least on formation, you have one person who exercises the power to appoint and remove the board, typically the founder. And it's for those people who are looking for that protection for their vision. They don't want to have, get overruled and have a board kick them out.
Good point.
So that is there. It comes with caveats. I don't think that's appropriate if the founder is in any way taking compensation from the organization, because that's in a position to abuse that power. But that is the structure that I typically discuss with clients who have that concern about, this is my organization and I don't want to have it taken away from me.